How do you identify yourself? It's a big question, one that over the course of your life changes, grows, and expands as you go through life's experiences. Where you find this identification also stems from a variety of sources. It can start with just your genetic traits, where you're born, but expands past that, from how you're raised to where you go to school, to even the exposure you receive from courses in colleges like the one we are in right now. Life reflects on you, and you then change to a more truer version of yourself. What we didn't realize is that this project would lead us to really think about what it means to place yourself in society. When our group got together to do this project, we wanted to expand upon what we had learned so far. We have looked at Judeo-Christian heritage from past viewpoints, from the before Christ era, before the breakout of Christianity, to the 1900s with the changing of religious freedoms and the use of the term. However, where does this put us now? How do we, college students, define Judeo-Christian heritage now? In this crazy technology, media-driven world, surely the definition has changed again. And we thought that our research would lead us to it, but it went in an entirely new direction. When discussing what the term could mean now, we stumbled in on a discussion trend we noticed. Could college students even identify the term without taking this course? With our buddies and peers or even family members, what do we discuss about ourselves? When we introduce ourselves to others, do we discuss our religious backgrounds? We all agreed that the answer to all these was no. We don't usually discuss religion with others. It has shifted into more conversations about gender, sexual orientation, and etc. Religious identity, we noticed personally, has shifted to a more lesser standpoint as something most of society doesn't mainly identify with or at all. This led us to dive into some sources to get some background on this shift of religious identity being less important in today's society, and see why this actually happens. We looked at 3 sources to determine some background behind this religious shift. The first was Courtney Bender's book, The New Metaphysicals, which discusses the central presence of individual religious experience in American spiritual cultures and practice. It investigates how this experience is produced, practiced, and articulated in one American city, Cambridge, Massachusetts. Bender approaches spirituality and the spiritual in America as deeply entangled in various religious and secular histories, social structures, and cultural practices. She states in the book, part of what makes spirituality so alive and vibrant for so many Canterburyans is the promise that it fully conforms to modern society. Like all things modern, they tell me, it is grounded on verifiable facts, objective truths, or experimental results. It exists in time, but also indicates something that is timeless, which is gradually becoming known to them and to us. Thus, while the information or knowledge that a metaphysical explorer gains in the astral sphere might not be fully translatable into the mundane realms of daily life, thus requiring spiritual adepts to creatively and consciously expand their religious imaginary. This does not change their sense that they cannot choose to be spiritual. Indeed, choice is not the proper way to view metaphysical reality, just as it is not the proper way to view modernity varies. Bender brought us a perspective on how religion has changed in a more modern way of thinking. But in Dr. Jakub Urbanite's article called Religion as a Memory, How Has the Continuity of Tradition Produced Collective Meanings? Urbanite argues that religion identification has moved into the past because of the inability to adapt in its current cultural climate. He states generally religion does not play any longer the integrative social role, the one of the universal cultural cement, does not imply that nothing can play such a role in the global world of today. Urbanite argues that religion identification has become of a lesser role because of the characteristics or traits that have been able to replace what religion used to provide, a sense of belonging with a group. Lastly, we looked at K. Helen Gaston's book, Interpreting Judeo-Christianity in America, to look and see what someone thought of the modern definition of this term and also religious identity itself. Gaston thinks now the term still sticks because publicly the illusion of a Judeo-Christian nation is mostly consumed by the fact that the United States mostly celebrates Christian holidays over Jewish ones. Gaston explains this term was used highly in the Cold War era to show a more unified nation than others like communist Soviet Union. Now, with the no longer threat of showing the world a strong sense of unity, the importance of being defined in a religion has shifted to not be as relevant. Instead, we have shifted to recognizing other things about ourselves. After looking at all this evidence, we decided the best way to test this theory, that people identify less with a religion, was to go out into the field ourselves. Our plan was to ask Transy students, on the fly, 3 main questions we think our project focuses on, and see how they respond. Questions are: how do you identify yourself culturally? What are your religious views, if any? And how are you able to define the term Judeo-Christian heritage? These questions, we thought, would be able to showcase how specifically this generation thinks about cultural identification, religion, and overall awareness of different religion terms. We had a plan and date set to interview people, and we're ready to go, and then set off on spring break confident in our project until
coronavirus of the new coronavirus.
That the coronavirus outbreak could become a pandemic.
Remote instruction that we're providing for our students for the remainder of the winter term and May term.
Coronavirus. Yeah, kind of decided to ruin our plans. With the pandemic spreading and us not knowing what to do, we got together on Google Hangout and planned a different approach. We were still going to make a video, obviously, you guys are watching it, but now we asked our friends and family to participate in our fun little questions. This took away the spontaneity factor, but still led to some good results.
Hi everyone, this is Nick Wade reporting for my part in our project here. I'm going to do a quick interview with my brother Eddie.
Hi, my name is Emily Neat.
My name is Rayla Abel and my name is
Ashley King, and I'm
Joined alongside with my dad. We're going to go through a couple questions here and see what he has to say.
The question was, though, how would I identify myself in culture?
I grew up as a Greek American, but I grew up in a very Greek household rather than American.
A white male.
I identify myself as a Southern woman. I'm white from a middle class family. I'm from Murfreesboro, Tennessee, which is basically a suburb, so I'm definitely like a suburb girl. I'm not really a city girl, I'm not really a country girl. I grew up in that little bitty sweet spot, but I think Southern woman is really the all-encompassing title that I identify with.
I'm a white American.
Nick, I'd say I'm a white male.
Okay, that was a very obvious answer.
White American young woman.
Heterosexual, white female from a, upper middle class family. I've had great opportunities for education.
What are your religious views, if any?
The Roman Catholic religion. I have all my life, and while I don't 100% agree with all of the teachings and demands of the Catholic Church, it's just what I've always known.
I mean, I know there's a God, but I'm not like a big follower, I guess.
It's interesting. I was raised in a very Protestant, very conservative Christian household my entire life. It was like if we didn't go to church on Sunday, like somebody's head was getting chopped off, or you had to be running like high fever to not make it to church. Coming to college, as is the nightmare of every conservative Christian family, I kind of started thinking a little bit more broadly than my own religion. I took a class on Hindu religious traditions, and I took a philosophy class, had multiple existential crises, which that somebody in a different part of the country believes something different, which was so foreign to how I had been raised.
I am Greek Orthodox, but I do attend Catholic Mass, as there is no Greek Orthodox church where I live.
I'd identify as a Christian.
Do you have a denomination of your Christianity?
I grew up in the Methodist Church and lately have attended more services at a Lutheran church.
I'm a Christian.
I grew up in a Methodist church, so, but as I came to college, I definitely began questioning what denomination that I would belong to. I do believe in a higher power. I think I do adhere to Christian values as well, especially founding values. But I don't necessarily know if identify with a denomination.
How do you define the term Judeo-Christianity?
I've actually never heard that term before.
I'll be honest, I had to look this up. I wasn't really sure. I also asked my roommate.
I've never heard it, so I have no idea.
Yeah, that's a great answer.
As like the common history and traditions and beliefs and ancestry between the Christian faith and Judaism, including like parts of our Bible or in the Torah and vice versa, and things like that.
What I think of Judeo-Christianity is it's the basis for all Christian denominations, and without it, I don't think Christianity could have spread the way it did.
Not Western, because like this European thought that formed around the Christian religion as it started to pick up and what people were believing in it, and then there were philosophers like St. Thomas Aquinas and St. Augustine. That's kind of who I associate with Judeo-Christian heritage, but also just, I guess, traditions that we assume are just so normal, like
Just like Methodism and Lutheran and other Protestant religions have there's the component of yourself and God and Jesus, and there's different portions of each religion, but those are some of the main ones in Judeo-Christianity.
All right, Dad, well, thank you for your time, and we appreciate your...
It is Judaism and its history, through the Old Testament, through the coming of Christ and the beliefs that he put forward. So I think it is a combined history of Judaism, Christianity, when it kind of spawns out of Judaism and then brings it all the way to present day. I wouldn't really put off
help in this interview.
You're welcome. Good luck.
Here are some things we noticed from the interviews. For starters, a lot of people had guesses or did not know at all what Judeo-Christian heritage is. They could make a guess from context clues or maybe us talking about an assignment from this course, but the answers varied and were usually very, very broad. We think this could be from the answers from the first question. How do you identify yourself culturally? When looking at the first question, most people place themselves in a society based on gender, sexual, racial, and economic identities. They usually never mention religious identities until we ask them in the second question. What are your religious views? When some people did ask for us to define culture, we basically said whatever is important to them. Still, religion was mostly left out of their identification. If we would have done this interview with people from 50, 100, or even 1,000 years ago, we could probably see religious identity shift to a very important part of their identification. When we look back on what we found, we realized that if we had to sum it up, we would argue that our generation has realized the importance of other characteristics than just religion when it comes to identifying ourselves. From the ever-growing mass amount of information through social media to the increase of social movements across the globe, we recognize all parts of our identity, not just the religious ones. Some people may believe this is a bad thing, that letting go of our religious roots can contribute to a lack of respect for what came before us. But we think it's more than that. It's a recognition of people's characteristics, a more respect and love for others, and more justice for those who stray away from the norm. These things are what this generation values. What started this project as defining what Judeo-Christianity is today, and it spread into us thinking about what we value in ourselves and what traits do we share with others.